evolution. It is something that is very, very important to the gaming community. And with each generation, you know, we all know that these consoles are supposed to evolve, right? This generation alone, we've seen a mid-generation evolution between the PS4 with the Pro and with the Xbox and the One X. And only one of those consoles showed you a really true evolution. Now I know you guys want to sit back and be like, what are you talking about? We got games on the Xbox and yada yada this. Yeah, you have a lot of third-party games. Those third-party games look just as good on the PlayStation 4 Pro. But do you have any games from Microsoft Studios themselves that's taking full advantage of the Xbox One X? No, you don't. Crackdown was supposed to be that leading title. That game that was released, it was supposed to have been released the day of the Xbox One X release, and it wasn't. When Microsoft first showed Crackdown, I think it was a Gamescom or either E3 in 2014, we seen a CGI trailer. Now we all know the CGI trailers are nothing what, you know what I'm saying, of the final build. They just give us an idea of what these developers want to bring us, right? Sony, for instance, with Killzone 2, they showed a trailer at a E3 press conference, and Killzone 2 looked phenomenal. But that isn't what we got on the PS3. What we got was, I can't even say it was subpar, because the game was actually pretty good, and it looked good, but it just didn't look as good as that CGI trailer. It was nothing close to it, but it had what the developer was trying to reach in it. It had a vision, right? It had direction. It just couldn't make it because the console itself was very limited on memory. So fast forward to the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, and it seems like Sony learned their lesson, right? Console-wise. Now, when it comes to games, the games themselves, from the beginning of the PlayStation 1 all the way up to the PlayStation 4 Pro, Sony's games has evolved. You had, on the PlayStation 1, you had Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, right? With Gran Turismo. Now, what Sony did, which was very, very smart, instead of giving you the same franchises throughout each generation, they changed it up within the next generation. Except for Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo kept evolving a little bit at a time with a tweak here and a tweak there to make their cars and their world look a little bit more real. Whereas when it comes to platformers, you got Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank. An evolution from Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. Now those games are related to each other, and I'm not talking about story wise or anything, but for as developer wise, because Ratchet and Clank, even though it was made by Simoniac was kind of taking pointers from Naughty Dog, right? Crash Bandicoot, which was Naughty Dog's first game, basically not really their first game, but kind of like their first hit. But, you know, they lost the license to Crash to Universal Studios or whatever, and it's a lot of red tape. But Naughty Dog chose to evolve, and they brought you Jak and Daxter, right? Okay, so that's all in the PS2 era. And you end up getting a new franchise. You had 3 new franchises on the PlayStation 2 compared to the first 3 franchises on the PlayStation 1. The first 3 on the PlayStation 1 was Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot, Gran Turismo, and the second batch on the PlayStation 2 was Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and God of War. A lot of people forget that God of War started out as a PS2 title. So you fast forward to the PS3, which everyone knows that the PS3 was a big flop when it first released because of the price point and everything. And a lot of developers hated making games for it because they had to sell processor and it made it difficult for third-party developers to actually try to understand how to create a game for the PS3. But you ended up having another blossoming effect with Evolution, right? You ended up getting Uncharted, The Last of Us, and then you had a few games that didn't quite see a sequel, but they were like an evolution towards what to expect when it comes to gaming as far as cinematic presence. Heavenly Sword and I can't think of any other games really right now. I'm doing all of this off the top of my head. But at the same time, you're seeing God of War evolve into a more graphical cinematic game with God of War 3, and you've seen Gran Turismo go from looking like an arcade racer on the PlayStation 1 to a sort of semi-realism racer on the PS2 to a full-out simulator on the PS3 as far as realism and gorgeous graphics, right? Evolution. So Sony understands evolution. Oh yeah, and that third franchise was uh, Infamous, right? Which, again, like I said just a few minutes ago, Sony understands evolution. Nintendo understands evolution. It does it slowly, more slower than Sony, because they believe in their flagship franchises from Mario, Donkey Kong to The Legend of Zelda. And that's understandable and that's cool because those titles, whenever they release, they are triple A. And you cannot ignore that. You cannot not ignore that Zelda sells up to 10 million copies, right? You can't ignore the Mario sells anywhere between 5 to 10 million copies. You can't ignore that Pokemon, which sells an infinite amount of numbers, period. And on top of that, Nintendo has done one thing that I've been begging them to do for the past few generations, and that's take Pokemon from the handheld and bring it in the house. And it was only possible with the Nintendo Switch because the Nintendo Switch is a hybrid console evolution that can be played inside the house or on the go. So Nintendo understands evolution. Sony understands evolution. So how come Microsoft, who got in this console race in the year 2000 with the original Xbox, don't understand evolution, right? They don't. Let's look at Halo to be for one moment. Halo was a groundbreaking can't say next year. It was a groundbreaking first person shooter that done a lot of things right. It was developed by Bungie, but taken over by 343 Studios, up in the Microsoft Studios program and everything. And Halo, it never evolved. It kept the same formula from beginning to now, as far as like run and gun, shoot, whatever. The very first Halo, it had multiplayer, but it was split screen. So let me take that back. It did evolve from split screen to online multiplayer, which the console evolved at the same time, just like Nintendo, just like the PlayStation. The Xbox, when it evolved, some of their franchises did evolve, but kind of slowly. So I'm gonna take that. I'm retracting that statement I made back a few minutes ago. But Halo 4, the game itself, the very first Halo, it it evolved into something spectacular because it had split screen co-op. It had no, it didn't have split screens co-op. It had split screen multiplayer. Then with Halo 2, you had your choice of split screen multiplayer or online multiplayer, which there's the evolution in that, right? I know that took me a while to get that out, and I apologize, but stick with me. Then you had, and it wasn't really a lot of franchises on the original Xbox that carried over into the Xbox 360. You had Fable, which that carried over, and you had Forza, which that carried over to the 360. Um, did they evolve? Fable evolved into a more graphical, pretty presentation, but the story and gameplay did not evolve with it. Halo, um, Halo didn't evolve. Halo 3 on the Xbox 360 was much like Halo 2 on the Xbox original. It did everything that Halo 2 did, but with the online multiplayer, it was actually a tad bit different from, Halo 2. And it wasn't, no, I'm not even going to say it was different. It wasn't that it was different. It was the same thing. And a lot of people enjoyed it, but a lot of people wanted something new, something fresh. They wanted evolution. So Microsoft, partnering with Epic Games, delivered Gears of War, which it was a franchise, new franchise. See how, they do, Nintendo did, Sony did, now Microsoft is doing this new franchise. They brought it to you. And what evolved was, instead of being in first person, it was over the shoulder, third person, which copied Resident Evil 4. But I don't even think Resident Evil 4 was the first game to do the over the shoulder third person thing. But that was it for Microsoft. They kept the same formula for Halo, Gears, and Forza. They killed off Fable. They had potential. They had new franchises this generation, but you don't hear no one talking about Quantum Break 2. Remedy has even started making games for multiple platforms. You don't hear no one saying anything about Rise Son of Rome Part 2. Mainly because probably that storyline was ended at the end of the first one. It didn't have no room for a potential sequel. And then Microsoft had a chance to bring out this game called Scalebound, which looked like another step in evolution, but it got canceled. So Crackdown 3 is not even an evolved game. It took an actual graphics hit. And this is the end of this video because you guys should get the point. Evolution. Did Microsoft know how to evolve their games? No. Everyone else does. So should we be worried about Microsoft and the Xbox brand? Talk to me later, guys.